What's good, YouTube? This is Boxingwave, and we are back with another fight breakdown. Saturday, December 10th, live on Black Prime pay-per-view, $39.99. All right, you can either watch it on the app, or you can watch it on cable or satellite. You can order it on there. All right, but it will be a pay-per-view. We got Terence Bud Crawford against David Avanesyan. All right, Terence Crawford is going to be defending his welterweight WBO championship title against David Avanesyan. All right. So look, there's a lot of drama behind this fight. You know, I've definitely addressed it on the channel in past videos. Everybody wanted the Errol Spence fight. All right. And we didn't get the fight. All right. Terence Crawford went this route with Black Prime, who is relatively unknown. All right. They've never really held a big boxing card before. And I'm kind of interested to see how the event does. This fight is in Omaha, Nebraska, which Terence Crawford is from. And I believe they sold out pretty quickly, which is no surprise. So we at least know that at the gate that Terence Crawford did well. But as far as pay-per-view buys, I don't know how it's going to do. You know, but I'm sure that there are people that are waiting for this event to fail because they're unhappy with Crawford's decision to take this route. And he's reported to receive $10 million for this fight. All right. And I'm just kind of glad to see Crawford back in the ring. But I am disappointed that it wasn't against Errol Spence. In fact, I'm very, very disappointed that we didn't get that fight. Basically negotiations fell through, and hopefully they can revisit having that fight early next year, you know, if they both win their return fights, because I believe Errol is probably going to have a fight soon too, especially with the amount of mandatories and belts that he hold. All right, so let's talk about this fight. David Avanesyan, he's 34 years old. He's 29 wins, 17 knockouts, 3 losses. He's been stopped once against Egi Kavalauskas a few years ago. All right. I believe he has like 1 draw. But Avanesyan. Avanesyan, good fighter. The first time I saw him was when he fought Shane Mosley. You know, a fading Shane Mosley. I mean, this was literally Shane's last fight where Shane lost the fight. And, you know, I watched a few fights here and there, at least, like, you know, the main ones. I did see the Lamont Peterson fight. I saw the Egi Kavalauskas fight. And I saw the Josh Kelly fight. Avanesyan has been like roughly a top 10 welterweight for some time now. He's coming off of 6 knockout wins, which include Josh Kelly, who was undefeated at the time. Josh had just picked up a win against Troy Williamson in a 50-50 matchup last weekend. All right. And he's currently fighting at 154. All right. So that Josh Kelly win was a pretty big win, you know, because Josh seemed to be like one of the better prospects in the game. And Josh was actually winning early and looking good early, but he was stopped in the 6th round. And it's probably one of David's best wins, you know, especially because, you know, Josh's name at the time was being mentioned with the Conor Benns of the world and some of the other fighters on the come up, like a Virgil Ortiz. All right, so he's 34 years old. He's about the same height as Terence Crawford. He's 5'8". Much lesser reach though. He's only a 68-inch reach. Terence is 74, so he has very long arms for his height and his size overall. And he's a good fighter. You know, he has good power. You know, he's knocked out the last 6 opponents, even though none of them were really that top, you know, world level fighters. You know, I think Josh Kelly was definitely by far the best stoppage. But for the most part, when he stepped up, he took some losses. All right, when he did fight Lamont Peterson, he took a loss in that fight. You know, Lamont Peterson is a kind of guy that's very difficult. It's really hard to hang with Lamont Peterson in that close or mid-range, area. You know what I'm saying? Lamont really shines, especially on the inside. He's always been tough. We've heard sparring stories with him. So David took that L, and it's no surprise there because they both have similarities in their game, but Lamont was just a little bit better even at that point in his career. But Eggy Kavalauskas, that fight there, that stoppage there, Eggy, both strong fighters, but Eggy is just too big of a puncher. He works from he's throwing punches straight down the pipe, right through the high guard of David Avanesyan, and he was able to get him out of there, able to hurt him and get him out of there. We know that Eggy is a big puncher. That is the one common opponent that they have at Kavalauskas between Crawford and Avanesyan. And Kavalauskas stopped Avanesyan, and he looked good doing it. Kavalauskas at that point, that's when people started to really pay attention. Even though he didn't look good against Ray Robertson, I believe that fight was a draw. That's how Kavalauskas got put on the map by beating David Avanesyan. Now we have Terence Crawford, and we all know Crawford. We all know he's one of the pound for pound best fighters in the world. Some consider him number one. Most consider them to be at least in the top three, or even if you want to push him down. I don't think I've ever really seen him in any less than top five. And Crawford's 35 years old at this point. Hasn't been as active as David Avanesyan. He's been pretty much fighting once a year. Okay, definitely the Spence fight definitely held things up. The issues with his former promoter Bob Arum definitely held things up as well. But trying to make good fights, trying to secure good names at the welterweight division has pretty much held him up since he's been a welterweight. All right. He had one fight in the last 3 years, and he pretty much almost went this whole year without fighting. His last fight was a stoppage win against Sean Porter last November. Before that, I believe he beat Kell Brook the year prior to that in 2020. And then in 2019, he beat Eggy Kavalauskas, who was undefeated at that time. All right. So he's basically stopped every welterweight that he's fought since he's moved up to 140. He moved up for Jeff Horn, after Jeff Horn beat Manny Pacquiao. He beat Amir Khan. He beat Jose Benavidez. All right, but he stopped pretty much every opponent. And I think most people just wanted him to fight some of the PBC guys, which was really out of his control. I know there were past offers made from Bob, and there were there were attempts to make fights, but they all failed. And you know how that goes with the PBC. It's really hard to secure fights with them when you're not a PBC fighter. All right, depending on who it is, how big the fighter is. All right, but Bud Crawford, again, he's coming off of the Sean Porter win. Like I said, he's the same height, 5'8", much longer reach. And he's coming off knockout wins all at welterweight too, and even at 140. He's been stopping guys for a good amount of time. I think the last fight that he might have went the distance for was probably the Victor Postal fight, where he dropped and hurt Postal, I believe, like twice in that fight. All right, but wasn't able to put him away. All right, so Crawford, 3-division champion, former undisputed champion at 140, very accomplished fighter, is fighting David Avanesyan this weekend. And what do I think about the fight, the actual fight? I've said this before. David Avanesyan is a good fighter. Very familiar with him. He's a very good fighter. He's a guy that I wanted to see Conor Ben fight. He's a guy that I wanted to see Virgil Ortiz fight. He is ranked. These are the guys, for the guys that's on the come up, I wanted to see these fights. Even some of the guys, like, I wouldn't mind seeing him fighting Keith Thurman. I think that would be a hard fight for Keith Thurman. I wouldn't mind seeing him fight Dennis Ugas. But for the most part, I kind of wanted to see him fight some of these up-and-coming guys, like a Rashidi Ellis or like a Stan Jonas. These are fights that are all good fights. He fought Velasquez on his way up, and Velasquez defeated him. So when I look at David, when I think of David, it's not that he's a bad fighter. It's just that where Terence Crawford has been in his career and the success that he has, he's already beaten guys on this level plenty of times before. He's beaten guys that's past this level plenty of times before, and he's beating guys at this level on a regular basis. He's normally fighting a guy at least this level. All of the guys are at least this level. So it's not that David is he's not even a tune-up, but for Crawford, I feel that he is, because Crawford is on the elite level of the sport. Guys like Canelo, guys like Inoue, who's going to be fighting Paul Butler, I feel like that's a tune-up for him. He's not a tune-up fighter, but I feel like, if you guys get what I'm saying, I think when you have a certain amount of success, I feel that way. If Spence was fighting David Avanesyan, I would feel the same way. It's a tune-up for Spence. It's not that David is bad. It's just that Spence, we saw what he can do at a higher level. You know what I'm saying? It would be a tune-up. So I feel that David Avanesyan is a tune-up for Bud Crawford. And I'm not just basing that off who Crawford, who he's faced or anything, or his accomplishments. I'm basing that off the style as well. I don't feel like David Avanesyan's style will give Crawford any trouble. His style, even though he's a good fighter, he's too basic for Crawford. He's not smarter than Crawford. He's not more powerful than Crawford. He's not more durable than Crawford. He's not faster than Crawford. He doesn't have anything that I feel that can give Crawford any issues. Of course, he has a puncher's chance. A lot of fighters had a puncher's chance going into the fight with Crawford. Kell Brook had a puncher's chance. Velasquez had a puncher's chance. Even Benavidez, had a puncher's chance. There's a good amount of fighters that Crawford has faced that had puncher's chances. And David Avanesyan has that. But that's all he has going into this fight. When I watch him fight, and when I watch him fight Josh Kelly and Lamont Peterson and Kell Velasquez, yes, he has a pretty solid active high guard. All right? He does feint a lot. He does change levels a bit. He's good. He's pretty good. He does have solid hand speed. He could counter your jab. He likes to try to get in that mid or close range and throw short shots, in between your punches. He's good. I can see exactly how he can catch Bud Crawford. All right? But it really depends on what fight Crawford is going to bring here. Because, and it's all based on that. Because if Crawford is going to take the approach that he took against Kell Brook, he's going to come out as a righty. He's going to come out as an orthodox fighter, and he's going to play it safe. He's going to fight smart. He's going to probe his lead hand. He's going to look for opportunities to land a jab. You know what I'm saying? And follow it up with the right hand, and just be patient. If he goes in the fight just wanting to download information and process his opponent and just fight a smart fight until you find an opening or a mistake and capitalize off it, he can do that. He can do that and maybe switch into a southpaw, maybe 2, 3, 4 rounds down the line. He can take that approach and fight smart. But if he does that, if he does what he did against Kell Brook or a Felix Diaz, it's really not going to be a competitive fight because he's going to be fighting smart. Now, if he takes the approach he took against Kell Velasquez, where he starts extremely fast and extremely aggressive, and he's looking for an early KO, then yeah, he might get clipped with a shot, because I think that Crawford is the most vulnerable when the fight is early, and he hasn't really processed his opponent like that. And I think that's exactly what happened with Kell Velasquez. I think that was a very risky, dangerous approach to take against a puncher like that, because he ended up eating a lot of shots. He has a questionable knockdown in that fight. And, he lost a couple, 2 or 3 of the earlier rounds. You know what I'm saying? Maybe 2 rounds. Let me not say 3. I don't want to push it. But I think he lost a couple of those rounds. I think he lost the second round. I think he lost the third round in that fight. All right? Because he took a reckless approach. And it was even up until like maybe the 5th round. Then he started to get the pushing. He started being, he was still being aggressive, but he was being a little smarter. Because this is the key thing with Crawford. And it hasn't been proven yet because he hasn't lost. But I feel like in order to at least have a good chance against Crawford, not only do you have to be smart and play chess with him, but you have to be able to adjust as he's adjusting to you. You're going to have to adjust to him. And I'm yet to see an opponent do that. You're going to have to adjust to his game. And there's not that many current welterweight, top tier welterweights that I can feel do it. If you have success against Bud, there's a higher gear that he can take it up a notch at any given point in the fight. He's always going to adjust to you. Whether it's him fighting as a southpaw or an orthodox fighter, whether it's going to be keeping the fight, using distance, probing, working behind the jab, countering, relying on that, or is it going to take pressure, all right, and him just beating you up, walking you down, all right, physically manhandling you? He can do it so many ways, and as he switches up and tunes things based on how his opponent is fighting, you have to switch with him. And I'm yet to see that, because once he takes it to that other level, like Sean Porter in his last fight, they told him he's down in the fight. And then he goes from playing around to fighting serious and stopping Sean Porter. That's exactly how the fight can go with him. Same thing with Kavaliasis. He gets clipped, he gets a good shot, and before you know it, now the game is changing. But if you're like a fighter like Kell Brook, who's fighting at the same pace and having a little bit of success, if you have success in doing something against Crawford and you don't switch it up, he's going to catch you because he's gotten used to exactly how you fight, and because you're doing the same thing over. And because you are being successful, it's not going to work. It's not going to keep working throughout the entire fight. You have to change it up. And I'm trying to give you guys as many examples as I could. And when I see David Avanesyan, I see him fighting and doing the same thing over and over again. Now, I worked against Josh Kelly because Josh Kelly just simply didn't have the power to keep David Avanesyan at range. And he doesn't have the inside game. He's flawed on the inside. He still is. Even with his win the other week or last week, I still think he's flawed. But he fought a guy with the right style. David was able to get physical and bully him on the inside. He was able to just walk him down with the high guard. You're not going to be able to do it. Watch the Felix Diaz fight. You're not going to be able to do it there. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to work because Crawford is going to open you up. He's going to hit you at every area of your body, from head to your torso, the bottom of your torso. Every area that's open, that's free, he's going to hit it. And he's going to throw combinations while staying out range. And he knows that David Avanesyan is going to be coming forward and he's going to be looking to pull counter. He's going to be ready for it. But that's what David does. Not much of a jab. Where's his jab? No, he's walking forward. Now, it worked against Josh Kelly, but it didn't work against Eddie Kavaliasis. It didn't work. Kavaliasis was using that jab and throwing right hands right through the guard. It was just too easy. Another thing is, when David Avanesyan is having trouble getting in range to land these shots, what does he do? He starts charging in. He starts lunging in. And he's lunging in with his head down. That's going to be disastrous if Crawford steps back and throws that short uppercut. And probably, I think that's going to be the punch that knocks him out. Or at least it's going to be the punch that starts the combination that's going to put him on his ass. It's going to be, stylistically, this is a nightmare for David Avanesyan. It's a nightmare for him. It's a nightmare for him. Because you're going to deal with a guy that can fight you any way and beat you any way you choose to fight. And when you can't make the adjustments, and he can't make these adjustments. He doesn't have it in his game overall. He doesn't have it. I haven't seen it in the fights that he lost. Or even in the fights that he won. He was losing to Josh early, but the pressure worked out for him because Josh didn't have the stamina to fight at the level he was fighting in the first or second round. He didn't have the power to hurt David Avanesyan. He caught him with a good shot. He did hurt him, but it wasn't a shot that he could have put him away with. Josh Kelly is all about speed and distance. Once you break through that, once he starts slowing down, once you start getting in range, his defense, all that slick, flashy movement, once you're on the inside, he doesn't have it. Terence Crawford is different. He's going to be moving, he's going to be pivoting and spinning his back off the ropes, even if you put him there. If you put him there, he's going to get out of it, unless he chooses to stay there. Now, I know Crawford has some defensive flaws. Okay, I do. I know when he fought Velasquez, he walked into a lot of shots, being overly aggressive. Okay, sometimes his head is just kind of centered. You know, I said this about Jared Anderson yesterday. It's like he's so offensively gifted because he can switch and he could throw all these combinations and put his punches together well. Sometimes Crawford falls asleep at the wheel a little bit and forgets that something might be coming right back at him. So sometimes he can walk into certain shots. Sometimes, you know, when he's throwing his combination, he still stays in place, you know. But it's not going to be enough for David Avanesyan to beat him, you know. I mean, of course, he has a puncher's chance, but how much is he really going to land? You know, I don't think this is going to be that much of a fight unless Crawford wants to make that kind of fight. If Crawford wants to come out fast and aggressive, it will give David a chance to land something big. But if Crawford comes out like he did against Felix Diaz or Jeff Horn or Kell Brook, then he's in a lot of trouble. All right. I have Crawford stopping David. I don't think David is going to make it to the 6th round. All right. I don't know if Crawford is going to want to kind of carry this fight because I think he could. But I don't see it going past 6, you know. I think Crawford is going to put him away. I think Crawford is going to hurt him. I was watching a little bit of the Velasquez fight, and I noticed that when they were discussing, or the commentary was discussing the fight before, previewing the fight before it started, I saw a stat that was crazy. Like, Crawford lands something like 50% of his power punches. Do you guys know how hard that is to do? You know, especially at the level of opponents that Crawford's been facing. That's pretty damn difficult. All right? 50%, almost nearly 50% of your power punches landed is crazy. You know, and this is why he's stopping everyone, because he's not wasting any punches. And with his long arms and the way he moves, it's going to be very hard to catch him unless he wants to be in the danger zone and go to war with you. I mean, that's when he's the most vulnerable. That as if he chooses to take that fight. But David, with his style, don't see many adjustments, don't see much of a jab. He needs to get in range in order to be somewhat successful. And I've seen Crawford fight many guys like this. Should be an easy night for Crawford. All right. I think this is going to be a showcase fight for him. Not to take anything away, because it is a solid, on paper, it's a solid opponent, but stylistically, it's a nightmare for David Avanesyan. All right. So anyway, I should be doing live commentary if I don't go to the Teofimo Lopez fight, because I'm still 50-50 with that. I'm thinking about going, but if I don't go, I will probably be covering this fight along with the Teofimo Lopez fight simultaneously. All right. So anyway, if you are new, please subscribe to the channel. Make sure you smash the like button if you like the video. Share the video as well if you can. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.